Hello, and welcome to another episode of Navajo County Connection. I'm David Tenney. I'm the Navajo County Board of Supervisors representing District 4, and my co-host.
Hey, it's good to see you. I'm Dawnafae Whitesinger representing District 5.
Dawnafae, nice to be back here in the studio with you.
Yes. And
again, we thank Mel West and his crew here at City 4 Television for allowing us to do this show well, all the time here from this studio. Occasionally we can make them get out of studio, but with weather like we have now, we probably ought to be outside. But anyway, we've got a couple of really good guests. I'm excited to have them here. We have with us Mr. Brad Worsley, the president and CEO of NOVO Power, and Mr. Randy Kreger, who is the plant managing director. Gentlemen, welcome to the show with us today.
Welcome.
We're happy to be here.
Glad to have you here. And, to get started, and before we start talking to everybody about what is NOVO Power and where is NOVO Power and what does NOVO Power do, why don't we allow you folks to introduce yourselves to the people that are watching at home. Give them a little bit of history about yourself, your personal life, where you grew up, that kind of thing, your family, and kind of what brought you to this point in your career as far as being involved in NOVO Power. Brad, why don't you go first?
You bet. I'm an Arizona native. I was raised in the Valley. My father is a serial entrepreneur, and following my undergraduate degree at BYU, I came up here to help him start the original biomass plant. It was in construction for several years. I helped run a business called Renergy that focused on procuring wood. And our focus at that time was to, get every piece of value out of that wood. We had a sawmill, we had a pole peeling facility, we had a shavings plant, and we also stockpiled almost 2 years of biomass off the Rodeo Chetaskai fire. Following that work, I went to my MBA program at Michigan State. I have a supply chain background. That's what I got my undergraduate degree, and I got my master's degree. Following that, I went to Intel and was there for almost 5 years as a commodity manager negotiating contracts for Intel. When the opportunity came to repurchase this biomass plant, I took a serious look at it and decided that this was a viable business, that it was a very good business. And I came back up here to run this business. All right,
and you and your family live in the Heber area?
We do. I'm married. I have 5 children and 1 on the way. And so we live out at Legacy Ranch. We just built a home, and we're excited to be here.
Very nice. Blessed is a man whose quiver is full. At least that's what the good book says.
Yeah, that's right.
With 5 and 1 on the way. That's
5 with 1 on the way.
Your
more than full.
There. That's good. Congratulations to you. And again, thanks for being here, Brad. Randy, how about you?
I grew up in Wilcox, so I'm an Arizona native as well. Moved around. I got a degree in mechanical engineering at the University of Arizona. I worked at a couple
Bear
of
down.
Yeah, played a little basketball. But ended up back at the Catalyst paper mill in 2000. So we moved to Linden at that time. Raised a couple of daughters in the Linden school area, and they're trying to get off to college now. So we're doing that. When I was working at Catalyst, they were building the biomass plant, so I was involved with some of the construction of that and some of the operation of that. So when Catalyst shut down, I ended up down in Globe working on one of the copper mines for a while. And when they called me back, looked at it because there's a little bit of rocky roads with the biomass, but looks like they put together the right stuff, and we were able to get the right people, and it seems to be working pretty well.
All right. Well, thank you both again for being here. And Dawnafae, if I might, obviously you don't talk about biomass and NOVO Power in particular without talking about the forest. And you know that forest preservation and restoration, I should say, and forest products industry has been a passion of mine in the 10 years that I've been on the Board of Supervisors, and many years before. It's in our family's DNA to live in and take out of and have healthy forests. And so anytime we're talking about this, it's something I can kind of get excited about, and I know you guys too do as well. So if I kind of monopolize this, I'll just apologize.
No, I completely
ahead of time.
understand.
All right. As many of our viewers are aware, we've had many programs here on the show where we talk about forest health and forest industries. We've had the Forest Service themselves on here several times to talk about these things. And certainly, with the Forest Restoration Initiative, and many years prior to that, and something we're just wrapping up now, the White Mountain Stewardship Contract for forest restoration. There's been a lot said and a lot done for forest restoration. And the forest industry has had kind of a rebirth over the last 10 years here in our region. And NOVO Power plays a very important role in that scene. And so we want our viewers to kind of know what is a biomass plant and what does it do. And so maybe before we ask Randy that question, since he's plant manager, first of all, kind of let people know where it is. I mean, a lot of people hear catalyst and might not even know what that means, but when we say paper mill,
yeah,
a lot of people then know what that means. You kind of want to talk about the location for a second, Brad?
You bet. Let me provide a quick history
you bet,
of
please.
the biomass plant, then I'll let Randy touch on what we actually do at the biomass plant.
Okay.
Back in the mid-90s, my parents bought a homesteaded piece of property outside of Heber, Arizona, back on Black Canyon Road, about 8 miles down that Black Canyon Road. And they built a multi-million-dollar home lodge on that property because it was one of the prettiest areas that they found in the western United States. That home was completed in 2001, and then in 2002, the rodeo and Chetasky fires were started, and they tore right through our property. We would wake up after this several million-dollar investment and look out to a barren wasteland after what used to be one of the most pristine pine forests that surrounded us. And for my dad, that was tragic. He not only had he invested in this, but he'd chosen this to be the place where he would go and recuperate from his his daily tasks. And his entrepreneurial wheels started turning, and it frustrated him to watch why did we waste that? Well, how did we allow our forests to get to a place where they couldn't be controlled in a fire? And then now that the fire had burned, why are we letting it go to waste? He personally funded clearing the half a mile around his personal property as his personal right as a landowner, but he watched the rest of this rot and decay, even though it still had great value, even post-burn. And from that was born the biomass plant. That seemed like a logical way to use this wood, is to create energy and power. And so in 2005 we started Renogy. The biomass plant began construction in 2006, was completed in 2008. Now if we all remember that time frame, 2008, 2009 we had an economic collapse. So the biomass plant was built well outside of budget because of cost of raw materials, because of the cost of getting contractors on site. And so in 2010, the bank that held the non-recourse debt decided to sell the plant to the Navajo group. The Navajo group assumed that plant under the name of Snowflake Power. They ran it for several years until the catalyst mill went bankrupt in 2012.
The catalyst mill, for those who may not know, the paper mill in between Snowflake and Heber.
That's right. So almost directly halfway between Heber and Snowflake on Highway 277, there is a paper mill that's been standing for 40 plus years that started with pulpwood and then moved to recycled paper. And Randy has a long history there at that plant.
And you guys located next to them?
When we were actually going to locate right next to Eurofresh in Snowflake, Arizona. And the paper mill approached my father and said, look, we think that there are some assets that could be conjoined, and there would be some synergies by having you there, such as burning their waste paper sludge. They have a coal facility, so there were some assets that we didn't have to invest in because they were already on site to help assist in running the mill, our biomass plant. When the paper mill went out, you now had this conjoined twin that had to be separated. And separate ownership. And when that happened, the owners of Snowflake Power got nervous about what their future would be if they would have to make very large investments to make that mill stand alone. What came of that is that my father saw an opportunity and stepped in and brokered a deal to buy the coal facility at the old Catalyst paper mill, to buy the biomass plant back, and then to also buy an entity called Pink Cliffs, which is where the landfills and wastewater disposal, about 7,200 acres of property that was previously owned by Catalyst. And for the first time in its short history, the biomass plant was now completely alone. They were not relying on anybody or another company to make sure that they were viable. And so that's the history that gets us to today. Now, I think Randy could probably tell us a little bit more about how a biomass plant works.
Okay, so first of all, a lot of people may not know what does a biomass plant mean. Some people don't even know what biomass is. Most people are going to understand that that's, green waste. You take that biological mass and burn it and do what with it? What is a biomass plant? What do you do and how does it work?
So it's very similar to the Choyas and the SRPs. The big difference is we're burning wood. So we take it, we chip it down to a 4-inch minus, and we actually put it in a boiler. We burn it, we make steam. The steam drives a turbine drives a generator, and we produce electricity. So we actually sell to SRP and APS about 25 megs per hour. So it's really just another boiler.
So it's an electric power plant.
Yes, it is. That's all it is.
But what we're doing is burning green waste, cleaning up the forest. So talk about that. How does that work? Where does the stuff come from? It comes into the yard just from out in the woods to coming in through my electrical socket. How does that happen?
So it shows up at our doorstep. It's already chipped. And if you're making lumber and you're cutting down the trees to make lumber with, you always end up with the branches, the limbs, the things that nobody else really wants. And historically they would have left that in the forest, or they would have burned it, or things like that. Now we are actually one of the few people that will actually take all this non-wanted material, and it gets ground up and deliver it at our doorstep. So we built some piles, give us some inventory. We have to put it on conveyor belts. We conveyor it up into a day bin, which feeds the boiler. The boiler is actually what they call a fluidized bed boiler. It actually has sand in the bottom of it, and it is about 1,500 degrees. When we're in operation, we put the chips on the bed, they ignite, and all our fly ash is caught through bag houses and things. So if you picture, the fires that you see in the forest and all the smoke and everything else, you show up at our place and you'll see a plume of mist coming off of our cooling towers, and that's about all you'll see coming off of our plant. So it's very clean. It's a great way to get the things to take care of this unwanted material out of the forest.
So David, if I could add on
Please.
to that, it should be understood that the beauty of our biomass plant is that we consume the garbage. We are the key to making this forest healthy, because we don't need the good round wood. We don't need just pine. We burn anything that is woody waste. So it could be pallets, it could be pinon, juniper, cedar, it could be pine, it could be oak, it could be yard waste. And we don't want the material that goes and goes into our local sawmills and makes a very valuable product. We'll take the bark, we'll take the pine needles. And so where traditionally the Forest Service was handcuffed to provide the best material for industry, we now say you can give us the worst material, the material that nobody else wanted, the dead and down, the material that is invasive. We'll take it, we'll chip it, we'll burn it. And we do that with 40 semi-loads a day of this material. And we create energy from it. We create enough power to power most of the homes of the White Mountains. So 20,000 homes, we provide enough power to power 20,000 homes.
How many homes?
20,000.
20,000 homes.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Very impressive. So when we look at your particular plant, how many employees do you have?
We have 37 employees.
37 employees.
Yes.
That's at the plant.
That's at the plant. So we have 37 employees, and we have hundreds of contractors. Now, you take what's called a Pareto principle, and you say 20% of your contractors do 80% of your work, and then there's another 80% that clean up the other 20%. But we have probably 10 major contractors that bring in fuel to us every day. And then, of course, you have to have all kinds of highly qualified and skilled companies that come in and work on a power plant. I mean, very highly rated electricians and welders and mechanics that come in and work on this every day. We put $12 million into the local economy, into this local economy, the White Mountains, every year. So, you know, we have a large impact, and, you know, luckily, as sad as it was to see cows go away, you know, we were able to put back to work some of those employees. And we run 24/7, you know, 365. So it's a great business. It's something that's going to be here for the long term. You always need power. And the key to our plant is not just green power. Some people struggle with the fact that we'll get paid more per megawatt than a coal plant will. It doesn't feel like an open and free economy where an electron's an electron.
Right.
I'll pay you, you know, the same rate for any electron. If you can't make biomass as effective as coal, then we don't want it. But the truth is that we have a secondary benefit. We make our forests healthy. We can take 30,000 acres a year and clean them up and not need one large tree, not even need the medium-sized trees. We'll take the stuff that's on the ground, the stuff that's overgrowth, the stuff that creates forest fires, and we'll clean that up. And at that rate, we can clean this forest up and stay on a very nice 10 to 15-year rotation where it stays healthy long term. We also improve watershed. That's, for SRP, that's one of their great benefits for us being up here doing this work. When you see a forest fire come through and we burn up 1 million acres in 10 years, that is hugely detrimental to the watershed and to the water that flows down to the valley where most of our population lives in Arizona. By cleaning up the forest, by removing trees that are removing that water, not allowing it to flow to our reservoirs, etc., that's a huge benefit. So we're not just being paid for electrons. We're being paid because we also clean up our forest. We're being paid because we improve our watershed, etc. And they're thrilled to have us.
So there's a developing enterprise on the White Mountain Apache tribe, Wamako.
Yes.
Do you partner with Wamako in any way, and maybe their waste?
I would love to partner with Wamako. I have called them many, many times. I'm struggling to get return calls from Wamako, but we are very interested. Inevitably, you know, this whole industry works. It may not be that I ever get material from Wamako, even though I'd love to have it, but they may have a higher value material that needs trucks to come up and transport. And when those trucks come up empty, they're grabbing green waste out of the valley and they're bringing it to me. So it's a very synergistic relationship. So yes, I'd love to have material from Wamako, but their existence makes my plant more viable because it creates a industry up here that brings live floor trailers and trucks to the mountain, and I'm able to reach further outside of our region to get wood to make our plant more viable.
Randy, how many Christmas trees you burned this year?
Everyone that you guys piled up.
Hundreds of them, right? I remember hearing the ads on the radio, and you know,
right.
for years cities have tried to do a service for people to give them a place to dispose of the trees, and in years past they've gone to a landfill or to a green waste dump site or whatever. And I remember hearing the radio ads this year saying that NOVO Power
That's right.
would take those at no cost, bring them, dump them there, and you guys take them and burn them.
That's right.
Makes great fuel.
Certainly a much better alternative than letting it be a fire hazard in your backyard, which is what has happened in. Never had a fire there, but certainly have had many Christmas trees sit in my backyard over the year, and just finally just turned to mulch. Yes, yeah, yeah. So just that kind of thing. When you mentioned anything that's green waste, that you'll take that. Now, 40 semi-loads. You know, some people might hear 40 truckloads. You said 40 semi-truckloads. So each of those loads is somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 tons.
Yeah, probably 25 green tons.
25 green tons. So that's a lot of waste burned every day.
Every day.
Every day. And so obviously, and I mentioned this at kind of the start of the interview, that the health of our forest is dependent upon companies like yours and others. You know, there's those that make pellets, there's those that make lumber, there's those that make all these different products out of the wood. But when you make lumber, there is waste, there is sawdust, there's chips. When we're doing the forest restoration, there's the limbs and the bark and the needles and all of that generally you leave it on the forest floor, you pile it up, you burn it out there, you get the controlled burns, the smoke that bothers everybody. Certainly a much better alternative to take it and burn it in your plant, would you not say? Yeah,
statistically, about 1/3 of the tree ends up in lumber. So you cut that tree down, you take the limbs off, you take the tops off. You know, you can't, on a sawmill, you can't cut, you know, a piece of wood this big, you're not going to get any lumber. So all that material is removed. Then you take it in and you cut up and another 30 or 40% of that residue is created. So if you take one log in the forest and you make it lumber, only about a third of it makes it to, sawmill wood. And so we're able to take the other 2/3 and power the White Mountains and do it in such a way. Randy made this point, and I'd like to make it again. You watch when the new control burning, and you'll see the plume that will cover the horizon. You can't see our exhaust. I mean, you can't. It's almost imperceptible. So we take all of that, the nasties that come when you burn wood, and we remove them. So it's really beneficial for this community.
Randy, if people had like a civic group or a Boy Scout group or something like that they wanted to teach more about this process, are they able to come to your facility and do tours? Obviously, you're not going to just let them run around, but is there some in a controlled environment where they could come and do that?
Yes, we have done tours. We try to stay away from the 7 and 8 year olds, but definitely the high school students and things like that. We've got 2 next week from the Heber School District, actually. So it's an ongoing thing that we try to educate them, show them, what jobs are out there and available, and how things are done in our facility.
So we'll have Mel West, the boss here at City 4, we'll have him put your information up on the screen at the end of the show. So if people do want to contact you, whether it's about tours or about an idea they have of a supply for the green waste or whatever, we'll put your information up there so they can contact you. We've only got about 5 minutes left on the show, but before we do, I want to kind of transition a little bit and talk about the future. The White Mountain Stewardship Contract has been ongoing for 9+ years. It's in its last year. The Forest Restoration Initiative has not kicked off, at least not at a significant pace yet. I mean, they've supposed to do 300,000 acres so far. They're a couple thousand acres. The new owners are saying that they're ready to ramp that up, and certainly we hope that that's the case, that they get that going. But how important is it that the Forest Service continue, Brad, to put their priorities, to make it a priority to continue forest restoration here in this area, as far as your businesses are concerned?
Well, we started this business because of 2 reasons. One was the White Mountain Stewardship Contract, and the other was because of the Rodeo Chetaskai fire. It is very difficult to know that the raw material required to run a business is in the control of the government. And when we saw the efforts by the U.S. Forest Service to put up a White Mountain Stewardship Contract, which was kind of a first of its kind, we took faith in that process and said, they'll continue to support us. Now, what we've done over 10 years is we found a way that we no longer need subsidy. It can be done with the infrastructure that's here, but that wood has to continue to be put out in front of that industry, not just for jobs, but because the forest has hundreds and thousands and millions of acres that still need to be harvested. We've hardly touched the surface. We've just kind of worked around the local communities. But we need to continue to do that work, and it's, again, such a symbiotic relationship. You have industry, you have jobs, and then you also are making this forest healthy for other industries, tourism, etc., that people can come here and be safe, their homes will be safe, and there won't be the devastation that we've seen in the last decade of 1 million acres burning up.
I appreciate you mentioned about the homes being safe. The fact of the matter is, in the Wallow Fire, Alpine, Nutrioso, Greer, Eager, all of those communities were saved for the most part because of the work that was done by the White Mountain Stewardship Contract to treat the forest within that 1 mile radius around those communities. So when the fire got there, instead of being up in the crowns, it dropped down to the ground, crept along, they were able to get it out. Now that work, when it was done, that waste, rather than leave the limbs and the needles there to continue to be a fire hazard when that fire came in, was hauled to your plant, turned into electricity to power studios like this, and then we're able to save those communities. I'm not sure people understand the nexus between your industry, the other industries, and the vitality of the communities living in such a fire zone.
Yep.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for being a part of our community. What an important enterprise in impacting our local community and helping us to think about conservation and the importance of how we can all participate in that. So thank you.
You bet.
Yeah, absolutely. The restoration of our forests is critical. It's got to happen. And we no longer need government subsidy to do it. We've got industry here that can handle it. That is great news. What we do need is for the government to fund the Forest Service so that they can get their employees on the ground to do the environmental clearances and the environmental impact statements to get the acreage ready so it can be treated. That's where we need Forest Service to focus their energies and make it a priority so that we can keep these industries that are here busy. And we all know that as that happens, more will come. Vaughan Brothers is here. They've shown an interest in doing more if they can have an assurance from the Forest Service that they're going to put up the acreage. So it's something that I know you're involved in. We've been working in a group that's trying to make sure that we're putting that pressure on the Forest Service through our legislative people, our congressional people, to make sure that the Forest Service is funding that in a way that allows us to continue to clean up our forests. So we've only got about 2 minutes left. Is there anything that we've missed, or that either of you would think that is pertinent that the people know about your business?
Well, every chance I get, I would just make a plea. 40 semi-loads a day is a tremendous demand. We have been bringing that in, but we've struggled to build inventory. We're running right now with very little inventory on the ground, and it's unfortunate that we have such a dry winter, but it's allowed us to continue to run. It is critical that the community and the U.S. Forest Service and state lands and BLM and other capable contractors understand that you don't need to burn your slash piles and put that up into the air. You don't need to let it rot into to compost over 5 or 6 years and have it be a fire hazard. We are always looking for material. We're always in the business, and we can take it and we can even pay for it. We just need to bring that material in so that we are secure in a knowledge that a bad snowstorm or a contractor's grinder going down, etc., we have a little bit of inventory to continue to run that plant and make power for the White Mountains.
All right. Well, I think that'll about wrap it up. We're out of time anyway. So anything else from you, Dawnafae?
No, thank you.
You bet.
All right. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being partners with our community, with Navajo County, and in doing everything you can to put people to work and to restore our forest. It's a phenomenal job you're doing, and we're glad that you're a big part of Navajo County, and certainly look forward to working with you in the future as we move forward.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for watching. We again give thanks to Mel West and his crew here at City 4 Television and the Shoals City Council for allowing us to use these facilities. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Navajo County Connection. Goodbye.